So here we go for our next walkthrough. So work solutions for Edexcel paper 2 foundation from June 2019. Calculators at the ready as and when required. So straight away, main thing is don't overcomplicate, but also don't take too lightly. Do make sure you answer the questions properly. Question 1, write it as a fraction. So obviously you could just think of it as 75 hundredths. People will be tempted to cancel it down and or just go straight from their knowledge bank that 0.75 is 3/4. Write the following in order of size. Personally, I'd put a dot under them or cross them out as you go. -3 being the smallest, -1 being next, then 0, 2 and 4. When listing factors, always best to pair them up, no matter what you're doing, and then you can pick any two required. Doesn't really matter which one you fancy. Question 4, when you go from grams to kilograms, the units are getting bigger, so the number should balance up, getting smaller, and don't forget the prefix kilo, meaning 1,000, giving you 1.756. Don't round it off. On to the next page. Question 5. So a million has 6 zeros. Okay, so 2 million will also have 6 zeros. Question 6. First sign of a wordy question. One line at a time. Can I do any maths each time? Dave goes into a cafe, buys 2 cups of coffee, and each cup costs £2.75. So you've got your calculator. Earn your first mark. Do your first simple step. And he buys a piece of cake, so and means add. So the £5.50 for the coffee and the £2.90 for the cake means that Dave spends £8.40. I'm showing every step clearly because you must show how you get your answer. 10, take away the £8.40 spent, means Dave will get £1.60 in change. And make sure, like always, make sure you answer the question, is Dave correct? So wrap it up by stating the obvious. On to question 7. There are Y boats on a lake, 7 per boat. So number of people is 7. If there were 2 boats, it'd be 7 times 2. There are Y boats, so it's 7 times Y. On to some simplifying algebra. Multiplying, don't forget, when you write your algebra, you can skip the multiplying, but they always want the number first. BA would be acceptable, but the 7 must go at the front. Y times Y times Y, not 3Y, it's Y cubed. And when it comes to simplifying these, one off the top, one off the bottom, top and bottom, top and bottom. So you just end up with an E on the top and an F on the bottom. Question 9. They do really like their pictograms. Edexcel seems to come up on every set of papers. Question 9. As soon as you see a pictogram, have a look at the key. Each circle is 8. I always like to make a note. Quarter of a circle will be 2. So there's 18 on that line. So there, and as now we start reading, we've actually answered the questions already. 24 and 18, they don't always ask them like that, but sometimes you need the totals and so on. On Wednesday and Thursday, 36. The number of records sold on Thursday was 8 times, so whatever that is, that's 8 times bigger. Or in other words, 9 shares. So you do 36 divided by 9. Each share is worth 4. So there should be 4 for Wednesday and the rest for Thursday. So on your diagram, half a circle for Wednesday and 4 reasonably decent circles on your Thursday to get all the marks. On to question 10 for some inequalities. So never get lulled into, must be one of each. Sometimes happens that way, but not always. But as you can see, there's 4 answers, there's 3 alternatives, at least one must be used twice. So 14 should get the smaller end of the inequality. 11 and 11 mean they are equal. 2 squared is 2 times 2, also equal. And -3 is a warmer, a higher, however you want to think about it, number. So should get the greater side, the open end of the inequality. Question 11. Now you've got a calculator. Calculators will follow BIDMAS. But I'll do it the non-calc way, because if you're revising, it could come up on either. So substitution means replace the letters with the values given, and next to each other means multiply. So the multiplication for each part must come first. So you've got 3 times -4, -12, credit of 35, added to a debt of 12. Feel free to use your calc to check, but you end up with 23. Number 12, onto some timetables questions. Graham gets to the station in Brighton 7:15, 7:22. So from 22 past, 15 past, there, do a subtraction if you need to, or a count on, but there's 7 minutes spare. Time is always a weird one. Don't be tempted to pick up your calculator. How long for the 7:22 train to get to London? So it takes 38 minutes to get to the next hour up, and then it takes 60 minutes to get to the next one. So either write 98 minutes, or should I already put 60 on there, or go with 1 hour, 38 minutes. Next one, number 13. I remember when this paper happened, it wasn't very popular with my class. A lot failed to spot that if it's 12 centimetres all the way across, if you count in the grid, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are 6 squares across. So each of these squares is a 2 by 2, which means the overall height being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. I said height, obviously I meant width. 5 squares of 2 each, giving you 10 centimetres from top to bottom. 14's a strange one. Never a fan of decimals when they're written in ratios, but if ever your brain doesn't brain properly, just remind yourselves, if I want to get it in this form, what do I divide by? Well, you always divide by itself to get 1. And if you do the same to the left-hand side, because ratios should always multiply and divide by the same multiplier, or in this case, divisor, then you get the ratio of 2 to 1. Question 15, guarded in the shape of a rectangle. So you've got the measurements, they say the keyword area, get multiplying, get the first mark earned. It will obviously be in meters squared. 40% are flowers, so 60%, is grass. 60%, 60 out of 100, multiplied by 5,400. Type it in your calculator, giving you 3,240 meters squared. Not a bad one. Next one, bit of probability, bit of converting fractions. Don't forget 1/3 is 0.3333 and so on recurring. So the least likely is the smallest of these. The smallest by a long way, really, is B. Most likely, in other words, which is the biggest is the one that goes on forever. It is the third. It is the C. So, if you read what Julie says, she's saying that same is third. Well, hold on. Sorry, Julie. Can't be equal, can't be. It's a no. I'm afraid you are wrong because you either get a head or a tail. So if a head is a third, they must add up to 1. So tails must be 2/3. A variety of correct ways of explaining that one. Finally, expected outcomes. If you've got the probability of something happening, so coin B is that, you multiply it by the number of times you do the experiment. So we would expect 132 heads if on coin B if we were carrying out that experiment. Question 17. Bit of waffle here goes banana yogurt. So as soon as you see a question that bounces backwards and forwards, I prefer to work on one at a time. Let's look at banana. There's 84 calories in 100 grams. It'd be nice if we knew 60 grams. So a variety of ways to get from 100 to 60 using multipliers. I always like to divide by itself and times by what you need. You do the same to both sides. Divide by 100 times by the 60. We get 50.4 calories. Move on to the yogurt. Same process. This time 87 calories every 100 grams. But this one's a bit more straightforward. Pretty's having 150 grams. That's a bit more of a straightforward multiplier. Don't forget, find your multiplier by doing a divide. 150 divided by 100 is 1.5. Do the same to both sides. We get 130.5 calories on the yogurt. Tell the examiner what we're doing. Not absolutely essential in this case, but we get 180.9 calories for that question. Number 18. Machines A and B, similar in that respect to the previous question, so I'm going to go about it in a very, very similar way. Split my page in half, work on machine A first. Let's see what's happening. So, machine A makes 6 parts in 10 minutes. As you can see, working in hours. So let's go up to hours. Let's turn the 10 minutes into an hour. That's a multiplier of 6. So it would make 36 parts. But it's actually on the go for 12 hours. So multiply by 12. That's 432 parts in the 12 hours it's working. Same process for B. That makes 13 parts every 15 minutes. So let's not forget 60 minutes in an hour. So our multiplier is 4. So it's doing 52 parts per hour. And that's operating for 10 hours. So it will do 520 parts in the 10 hours it's on the go for. Take these two answers. It asks for total number of parts. Add them together for 952 parts in the times they are working on the Monday. So on to question 19, you'll notice this snap edit there. If this is the first video of mine you've watched, or if it's the 50th video you've watched, you will know my knowledge of technology, not exactly the best. So here, when it comes to 180 centimetres, you need to divide each number by 30. So that gives us 6 centimetres and 5 centimetres. So to be more than 6 centimetres away from a corner, as you can tell this beautiful diagram, you in the real world should be using a pair of compasses to draw yourself a quarter circle, and you should be using a ruler. Measure 5 centimetres for there, measure 5 centimetres for there, join them up with a ruler. It needs to be outside of this region, so not there, outside of that region, so not there. Don't spend too long shading. That's plenty for a question like that. On to number 20. Good old inequalities. They don't look the friendliest, but they're well worth some effort. I do think inequalities are an untapped resource. Question 20 here. Subtract 11 and treat it like an equal sign. If it was an equal sign, you would hopefully be subtracting 11x from both sides. So in this case, 11n from both sides. Divide both sides by 3, and you've got your answer sorted. Here we've got a double inequality. Don't get put off. The idea of algebra is do the same to both sides, but let's rephrase that. Do the same to all sides. So that plus 3, let's subtract 3 from all sides. And we're getting that, which means circle required on 5. It'll be an open circle because there's no equals to. Circle on 1, that'll be a closed circle because there is an equals to. And just join them up. Don't bother with any arrowheads or anything like that. To question 21. Again, notice bad editing due to my inferior knowledge of modern technology. You got a couple of choices on this one. You can either go for the old y equals mx plus c. In other words, the intercept is -3, and the very definition of gradient, in this case 2, means for every 1 unit, in this case 2 squares, for every 1 unit to the right, you go up 2 units. So along 1, up 2, and you can use the staircase to plot your line, pencil and ruler, don't forget. Or you could obviously, depending on your teacher's preference, I'm sure they'll have shown you both ways, set up an old table of values and simply stick the naught in. You get -3. That happens to be that coordinate there. Stick the 1 in. You get -1. Stick the 2 in. 2 2s are 4. Take away 3. Leaves you with 1. And as you can see, you get the same result. Stick with whatever works for you. Question 22. Now, to save me being rubbish with my electronic pen, as you can see, I've already filled in part I, but let's come to that in a second. On a calculator paper, do not overcomplicate these things. Have a read of what's going on, but at the end of the day, how many do you think will go to the theme park? 10 out of the 30 students say they want to go to the theme park. If they represent 195 students, you multiply by the 195, giving you a guesstimate of 65. And it's a guess. It's an educated guess, but it's a guess nonetheless. And the assumption of that guess is that the sample is representative of the population as a whole. On to question 23. Even though some people start giving up and thinking 23 and beyond starts getting really difficult, don't. Just take it one step at a time. As soon as you see a question like that, and the word water or something similar, it's a volume question. So don't worry about all the waffle, we'll come back to all that. I want the volume of this container. Get the dimensions multiplied. We've got 3,420 centimetres cubed. But because it switches to water, you need to switch to water. And don't forget the conversion for millilitres to centimetres cubed, they are identical. So the container is 2/3 full. So 2/3 of means times. This will tell us how much water is actually in the container. And then each cup holds 275. Now it says how many will completely be filled. So no matter what answer we get, we round it down. So we divide it by 275 because the units are the same. And we get 8.29 cups. Or in other words, 8 full cups. Question 24. It's got an angle involved, so it isn't Pythagoras. It is SOHCAHTOA. But which of the SOHCAHTOA triangles? So it says work out the length of AB. Let's stick an X on. Get your labels. Hypotenuse is that one. Opposite the angle is over here. As you can see, each of those are involved in this question. It's the adjacent, which is pretty useless. This is a SOH question. Cross out what you need, it's opposite, and we are left with these next to each other, so it's a times. The S stands for sin of the angle. The H stands for the hypotenuse, and it says answer to 2 decimal places, 9.85. If your calculator isn't playing ball, don't forget a lot of them open up a calc. Some of them need you to close it. Some it doesn't matter, but some of them do need. And obviously, if it's not giving you that answer, do check your calculator is in the correct mode. Question 25. Although it looks like, and obviously they use the phrase error interval, because it's been chopped off, don't forget, it's not the most common topics. Do look up the subject of truncation. This number has been truncated. It's not been rounded off, it's been chopped off. So it could be followed by a load of zeros. Or in other words, it could just be 8.3. But it could also be 8.3 with an infinite number of nines. Now obviously that's acceptable, but because it's a less than, you could also be using 8.4 on the mark scheme. Both are to be marked correct. Number 26. A wordy ratio question. These things crop up quite a lot. Just get it set up. If you get your question, if you get information sorted, you're halfway to solving the problem. So we've got Abby, Ben, Chloe and Dinesh. And Abby and Ben are the ratio of 2 to 7. Now Chloe and Dinesh get 1.5 times the 2 by 1.5. Basically, it's a 3 each. Well, we're pretty much there. It's now a standard ratio question. Work out the amount that Ben gets. Ben has a 7 share out of 15 shares of the £360. He's getting £168 of it. And there we go. Good old standard, both literally and figuratively. You know standard form, they're always going to ask you a 1 or so marker. Here we go. So this is a small number, so it's going to be a minus power. We need the digits to be 5.62, so that this number is between 1 and 10. But how many times has it been moved? It's been moved 3 times. Write this as an ordinary number, so it's a big number. So move the 1452 to the left a bit. But it's moving 3 times. Oh, so it actually finishes on the end. We don't need to worry about that at all. And finally, the last page. Looks not very friendly, not as bad as it seems for either of them, so don't give up on these kind of questions. Don't forget what Fibonacci means. It's 3 plus 3 makes 6, 3 plus 6 makes 9, and so on. So 9 plus 15 makes 24, and 15 plus 24 makes 39. Now, if you can do it with numbers, you can do it with letters. A plus 2a makes 3a. That's the fourth term. 2a plus 3a makes 5a. And 3a plus 5a gives you the sixth term, 8a. And then we've got this one. Don't forget, vectors, just think of them as posh brackets. So we've got to do A, which is 4, 5, subtract 2 lots of B, which is 3, 2. The number in front of a bracket simply doubles or trebles or whatever. That's your multiplier. So look along the top. So we've got 4, take away 2 lots of 3. Or in other words, 4 take away 6. Look along the bottom. We have 5, take away 2 lots of 2. Or in other words, 5 minus 4. You could do a bit more working out than that if there were more negatives floating around. Don't be afraid of getting your calculator involved, even when it's a question that doesn't look like a calculator should be getting involved. And that wraps up another one. Hope you enjoyed that one. See you on the next.